Imagine holding an insurance policy that basically guarantees you will never, ever be laid off.
Right.
Not just for like the next 10 years, but for the next 180 years.
That is a long time.
Or, well, if we're taking the author of today's source material at his absolute word, for the next 800 years.
Wow. 800.
Yeah. It sounds totally absurd,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
we live in an era where the constant anxiety we have about the job market feels like this high-stakes game of musical chairs.
It really does.
The music is playing, everyone is dancing around their spreadsheets, their remote Zoom setups, their quarterly reviews. But you always have this lingering dread in the pit of your stomach.
What happens when the music stops?
Exactly. Am I going to be the one left without a seat?
It is just a universally exhausting way to live. And, it's a fear that permeates almost every single industry right now, from tech to manufacturing to the creative art.
Oh, absolutely.
We are constantly worried about losing our livelihoods, about our hard-earned skills becoming obsolete overnight, or just being downsized out of existence by some boardroom decision we had absolutely no say in.
Yep, completely out of our hands.
So we spend, so much emotional and cognitive energy just trying to desperately cling to the chair we currently have.
We really do. But today's deep dive explores a 2024 essay that claims this entire anxiety is completely self-inflicted.
Interesting.
The essay is titled The Mystery Behind Unemployment by a writer named Shu Feng. And our mission for this deep dive is to unpack an incredibly bold, deeply counterintuitive argument he makes.
Okay, I'm ready.
He claims that if you master 3 very specific secrets, you just transcend the game of musical chairs entirely. You will literally never face unemployment again.
Which is, that's an audacious promise,
Yeah.
but what makes this essay so compelling isn't just the sheer confidence of that claim.
Right.
When you dig into his arguments, you realize this isn't your standard list of hollow career tips. He's not going to tell you how to optimize the keywords on your LinkedIn profile.
Or how to subtly negotiate a 5% raise during a performance review.
Exactly. He is offering a profound, almost philosophical deconstruction of what it actually means to be a valuable human being in any economy, under any circumstances whatsoever.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because when someone tells me they have the secret to 800 years of ironclad job security,
You're naturally skeptical.
very skeptical. My immediate reaction is like, are you just wildly overconfident? Or have you actually cracked some fundamental truth about human nature and the workplace?
Well, to figure that out, we have to start with his first secret, which completely flips the script on the basic premise of why we even go to work in the first place.
Yeah, before we can figure out how to keep a job, we have to understand the fundamental drive to work at all. And according to this author, it is absolutely not about paying the bills.
No, it's not. He frames human labor as a cosmic mandate.
A cosmic mandate.
Yeah, he uses this fascinating theological metaphor to make his point. He asks the reader, why were humans not created directly by the greatest creator?
Okay.
And his answer is that the creator wanted gods and angels to learn how to create too. So he points out that humans weren't left in a metaphorical Garden of Eden to just, lounge around without worrying about food or shelter or getting older.
Right, because humans inherently must create.
Exactly. As long as you are breathing, you have a deep psychological need to create. It's where the actual vitality and joy of life come from. We just aren't built for perpetual idleness.
He has this incredibly poetic way of describing it, too. He says, a true creator can make something out of nothing. They can add beauty to the world, capture the moon from the sky, or catch turtles in the ocean depths.
That is a great image.
It is.
Yeah.
And the underlying implication there is that if you are genuinely creating new value out of thin air, how could you ever possibly be out of work?
Right.
There's always going to be an endless amount of demand for someone who can conjure something out of nothing.
Precisely. But he doesn't just sit in an armchair and philosophize about this. The man brings the receipts from his own life.
Oh, he really does.
And his resume is the absolute antithesis of the traditional linear corporate ladder.
It is a wild ride. Let me just lay out this trajectory for you. So he graduates from the Zhangjiakou Geological Technical School. Then he's working in a dusty workshop in Gansu, repairing drilling rigs and cars.
But he's not satisfied.
Not at all. So he goes to 2 different education colleges in Lanzhou and Jiquan, graduates from those, and becomes a middle school teacher.
Still not satisfied.
Nope. He secretly rents a storefront in Zhangyi City to repair cars and sell auto parts, but then abandons that because it just isn't enough for him.
Wow.
Then he pivots entirely, goes to Beijing to study international trade, and ends up moving to Zimbabwe as a translator.
And Zimbabwe is where this massive urge to create really kicks into overdrive.
Yeah.
In Harare, the capital of Zimbabwe, he essentially builds a mini empire from scratch. He opens stores in the capital, stores in a local black neighborhood, a bar.
A nightclub too, right?
Yes, a nightclub, a restaurant, and even a fast food outlet. He was aiming to build this massive multinational trade company.
Wait, hold on. I have to push back on this.
Go for it.
Because going from repairing drilling rigs in Gansu to running a nightclub and a fast food joint in Harare, I mean, that doesn't sound like a career path. It sounds like chaos.
It is definitely chaotic.
And honestly, it sounds exhausting. In our modern context, is he just glorifying burnout, this relentless, never-ending drive to build and pivot and hustle across 3 continents?
It sounds like the ultimate hustle culture.
Exactly. It's the toxic manifestation of hustle culture. Is the secret to never being unemployed just working yourself into an early grave?
What's fascinating here is why he was making those wild pivots and what he actually learned from that frantic activity.
Okay, why?
He wasn't just throwing things at the wall. He was moving across wildly different industries to prove his own hypothesis.
Which is?
That the rules of value creation are universal, whether you're fixing a transmission or running a multinational trade company.
Right.
And his ultimate realization from building this mini empire in Zimbabwe is a massive perspective shift regarding scarcity. We usually think of jobs, opportunities, and money as these highly scarce resources that we have to fiercely compete for.
Yeah, the musical chairs.
Exactly. But he says, and I quote, "Money was like ocean water, endless."
Money is like ocean water. That is a really striking image. But, what does that actually mean for the listener who is sitting in a cubicle doing data entry or trying to piece together freelance gigs?
It means that the world does not lack resources. The bottleneck in the economy isn't a lack of money or a lack of opportunity.
What is it then?
He realized that the world desperately lacks people who are actually good at creating and who are reliable.
Well,
He says he saw money everywhere in Zimbabwe, but he just lacked the time and energy to pick it all up himself.
wow.
His business growth was bottlenecked because he couldn't find enough honest managers to help him run his operations.
So he was constrained by talent, not capital. Exactly. So to synthesize this for you, your ultimate professional value isn't in your ability to aggressively hunt for scarce resources or beg an employer for a job.
Right.
Your value is in being the creator who can harness the massive abundance that is already out there. If you are a relentless creator of value, you instantly become the scarce resource that every boss is desperately looking for.
So you aren't looking for a job. You are the living solution to the exact problem a manager is currently stressing out over.
Yes, precisely.
I get that.
Yeah.
But relentless creation without any kind of moral compass or deeper purpose can easily mutate into toxic greed. It's just expansion for the sake of expansion.
That's a very real danger, yeah.
And that is exactly where the narrative of this essay takes a very sharp, very sudden turn. The engine of creation needs a steering wheel.
It really does.
He shifts from talking about how much he was building to why he was building it, and is brought on by a jarring brush with mortality.
Yes, he mentions experiencing what he simply calls a strange car accident.
Strange car accident.
Yeah, we don't get the granular physical details of the crash, but we get the profound psychological aftermath. This brush with death completely halts his empire-building mindset. It forces a hard pivot.
To what?
He shifts his focus entirely from making money to what he calls building his soul.
He has this epiphany that if you don't keep up with your inner growth, all that outward frantic hustle is essentially useless.
Right, because you will eventually stumble, your empire will collapse, and you will lose your job anyway because the psychological foundation is rotten.
Which brings us to his second secret, right? Contribution and dedication.
Exactly.
He argues that the smartest, wisest people in the world actually do not care about personal gain or loss. They focus entirely on contributing to others, to society, and to nature.
And he backs this up with the reality of his life since 2009.
Okay, what happened then?
After the accident, he says he dedicated everything to building something called the second home of Lifechanyuan.
Second home of Lifechanyuan.
Yeah. For the listener, think of this not as a standard corporate startup, but as a deeply intentional community or collective.
Oh, fascinating.
For 16 years, he hasn't focused on personal profit or climbing a ladder. Yet he explicitly states that after all this time, he is not poor. In fact, he enjoys honor and a rich life.
Wow.
His core advice here is to do your best, work more, contribute more, and fundamentally stop worrying about your personal slice of the pie.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though.
Yeah.
He claims that if you adopt this mindset, where you are relentlessly serving others without being stingy or calculating your reward, bosses will actively compete to hire you.
They absolutely will.
He even goes so far as to say even a beggar would want to beg alongside such a person.
A great quote.
But let's look at the reality of a 5,000-person modern corporation. It is inherently cutthroat.
It can be, yeah.
If you are just constantly giving your ideas away, working extra hours, solving problems, and refusing to worry about who gets the credit, doesn't that just make you a target?
I see where you're going with this.
Won't your middle manager just steal your credit, present your ideas to the VP as their own, and get the promotion while you stay stagnant? Doesn't this philosophy just make you a doormat?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we can see the exact underlying mechanism he's tapping into. It's a paradox.
Okay, explain the paradox.
The fear you just mentioned, the fear of being a doormat, is entirely based on a transactional view of work. But the author is talking about becoming undeniably essential.
Essential, not subservient.
Exactly. There is a massive difference between being subservient and being indispensable. The author's arguing that wherever you go, if you serve others and solve complex problems without constantly halting progress to haggle over the credit, your path naturally broadens.
Oh, I see.
Your competence becomes too loud to ignore, even in a huge company.
So it's the difference between a doormat and a load-bearing wall.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Yeah, like a doormat lets people walk all over them because they lack boundaries.
Mm,
But a load-bearing wall supports the entire structure because it is fundamentally strong.
exactly. And that strength comes from not constantly worrying if it's getting enough credit for holding up the roof.
Right.
Think about it in the context of your own life and your own network. Who are the most indispensable people in your workplace right now?
Usually the ones who actually fix things.
Right. It's the person who steps in, fixes the issue, helps their colleagues, and doesn't immediately send an invoice, metaphorical or literal, for their exact expenditure of energy.
Yeah, they just get it done.
When you are that person, you become the load-bearing wall of the organization. People instinctively gravitate toward that energy. The beggar wants to beg next to you because you radiate abundance.
And the boss competes to hire you because you represent pure value.
Yes, pure value without the agonizing friction of constant self-centered negotiation. You transcend office politics because your actual value is just undeniable.
Okay, that makes sense. In a growing, healthy economy, you are creating constantly, bringing in resources like ocean water,
Yeah,
and you are contributing selflessly, acting as that load-bearing wall for your team.
right.
But let's be fiercely practical for a second.
Okay.
Sometimes the economy just crashes. A global pandemic happens. An industry-wide supply chain breaks. Layoffs become mathematically inevitable.
They do.
When management is sitting in a sterile boardroom with a massive spreadsheet, looking at who gets the axe to save the bottom line, how do you actually survive that chopping block?
That is the ultimate stress test for his theory. And that brings us to his third and arguably most grounded secret,
Which is,
honesty. But he defines honesty very specifically.
how so?
It doesn't just mean not stealing office supplies. It means keeping your promises, even if keeping that promise means you lose everything in the short term.
Wow.
He says once you speak, you must act. Never scheme, never be sly, and never seek to take advantage of a situation.
Which feels like the exact opposite of the advice you usually get from career gurus about climbing the corporate ladder.
Totally.
I mean, think about the classic analogies we always use. Navigating a career is constantly compared to playing a high-stakes hand of poker. You're supposed to bluff about your skills in the interview, hide your weaknesses from your manager, and constantly calculate your strategic moves to outplay your coworkers.
Yeah, the poker analogy implies that deception is an essential professional skill.
Exactly. But the author is essentially saying that in this game of poker, showing your cards to everyone at the table is actually the ultimate winning move.
That's it.
And honestly, I'm struggling with that. How does showing your weaknesses keep you from getting fired?
Well, let's throw out the poker analogy entirely because it's fundamentally flawed for what he's describing.
Okay, throw it out.
Think of a career not as a game of poker, but as a system of cryptography.
Cryptography.
Yeah. In a modern corporation, almost everyone else is trying to encrypt their true motives. They spin the data, they hide their mistakes, they posture.
Right.
This forces the boss, the decision maker, to spend massive amounts of cognitive energy trying to decrypt what their employees actually mean. Are they lying about the timeline? Are they hiding a budget error?
That sounds exhausting for a manager.
It is. So by being radically, uncompromisingly honest, you are the only employee communicating in plain text.
Plain text, I love that.
You save the decision maker an immense amount of cognitive energy. You become a frictionless node in the network.
Oh, that is a fantastic way to frame it.
Yeah.
You aren't just being good for the sake of morality, you are actually optimizing the boss's workflow by not making them guess.
This raises an important question about how society currently values professional qualifications. We put so much stock in resumes, in cunning, in strategic maneuvering.
We really do.
But the author explicitly ranks honesty above all of that. He says honesty surpasses all cunning, strategic calculations, qualifications, and experience.
That's a huge claim.
He bluntly calls people who haggle over everything and are overly self-centered, quote, the most foolish people.
And he's not just guessing here. He's speaking directly from his own experience as a small boss building that empire in Zimbabwe.
He says he knows exactly what goes through a boss's mind. When that spreadsheet comes out and it's time for layoffs, he knows exactly who should be let go, who should stay, and who he actually wants to promote and share the wealth with.
That perspective is crucial. As a boss, he realized you simply cannot fool anyone for long.
No.
Especially people who possess high intelligence, high emotional intelligence, and what he calls SQ.
SQ. We hear about IQ and EQ all the time, but what exactly is SQ in this context?
So SQ refers to your spiritual quotient.
Spiritual quotient.
Yeah. If IQ is how you process data and EQ is how you handle interpersonal relationships, SQ is your deep situational awareness of moral reality and existential purpose.
Oh, wow.
It's a measure of your integrity and your understanding of long-term consequences. The bosses you actually want to work for, the ones who run successful, resilient, long-lasting companies, they have high SQ.
They see right through the cryptographic scheming. They absolutely see the bluff. Let's translate his Zimbabwe experience to a modern tech CEO looking at a remote workforce. The CEO knows who is artificially inflating their metrics and who is actually doing the work.
So when the pressure is on, and the company absolutely has to cut 20% of its workforce to survive the quarter, the CEO isn't looking at who is the best at office politics or who has the most impressive Ivy League degree.
Exactly. When push comes to shove, bosses don't protect the smartest schemer. They protect the person they trust the most.
Because technical skills can be taught.
Right. Industry experience can be gained over time, but trust, once it is broken, is incredibly hard, if not impossible, to rebuild.
That's so true.
If a boss knows that you keep your word even when it hurts you, that you are the one person on the Zoom call who will openly admit a marketing campaign completely failed rather than hiding behind vanity metrics, you become a fixed point of reliability in a chaotic world.
Why would they ever let that person go?
They wouldn't. They would rather let go of the brilliant but sly strategist, because the strategist is a wild card. The honest person is a sure bet.
It's so deeply counterintuitive to everything we are taught. But when you lay out the mechanics of it, it rings incredibly true.
Isn't it?
If you've ever managed a team, the person who tells you the unvarnished truth, even when it's bad news, even when it's entirely their fault, is infinitely more valuable than the person who always has a perfectly crafted, bulletproof excuse.
100%.
So let's bring all of this together. We've gone from the cosmic fundamental need for humans to create to a wild, multi-industry business empire in Zimbabwe that proved resources are abundant.
Like ocean water.
Like ocean water, to a life-altering car crash that forced a pivot toward selfless contribution, and finally into the sterile boardroom of a boss making agonizing layoff decisions based purely on plain text honesty.
It is a remarkable unified theory of professional survival.
It really is. He's laid out this three-part formula for a literal lifetime of employment. First, relentless creation, realizing that you are inherently meant to bring something out of nothing.
And that opportunities are abundant.
Right. Second, selfless contribution, paradoxically securing your own position by completely dedicating yourself to serving others, acting as a load-bearing wall without constantly haggling over the credit.
Beautifully said.
And third, uncompromising honesty. Communicating in plain text, keeping your promises, and realizing that pure trust is infinitely more valuable to a decision maker than any resume qualification.
Which is huge.
So what does this all mean? How do we actually take this massive philosophical shift and apply it to our lives tomorrow morning?
I think we have to go back and build on the author's mention of that strange car accident.
Okay, the catalyst.
Remember, that was the ultimate catalyst.
Mhm.
It forced him to stop just blindly accumulating businesses and start building his soul. It leaves us with a really profound thought to mull over regarding how we currently present ourselves to the world. Right now, the modern concept of a resume is highly transactional.
And frankly, very fragile.
Yes. It's a single piece of paper or a digital profile where we list our software proficiencies, our job titles, our degrees, the revenue metrics we've hit.
It's a historical ledger of what we did.
Right. It's very clinical. It's a list of the exact specifications of the chair we are currently sitting in.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But if this author is right, and the mechanics of his argument regarding abundance, contribution, and trust are incredibly sound, then that traditional resume is fundamentally broken.
It's solving for the wrong variable entirely.
Exactly. If you want the ultimate resume of the future, the one that acts as that foolproof insurance policy guaranteeing you have a place in the world for 180 years or 800 years, it wouldn't be a ledger of your technical skill.
What would it be?
It would be a ledger of who you helped. It would be a concrete record of the promises you kept when it was financially or professionally difficult to do so.
Oh, wow.
It would be a measure of the times you created value from absolutely nothing, not for personal glory or promotion, but simply because someone else needed it.
A soul resume rather than a skills resume.
Yeah,
It completely changes the objective of your entire career.
it really does.
You aren't just trying to acquire a new trendy certification to guard your seat when the music stops. You are building an undeniable gravity that draws opportunity to you.
Exactly. Because if your soul resume is strong, if you are a reliable creator who serves selflessly and speaks an honest, plain text, you don't ever need to worry about fighting for a seat at someone else's table.
Because your value is so universally recognized that you've essentially built your own table.
That is a phenomenal way to look at it.
The anxiety of the musical chairs game only exists if you believe the chairs are scarce. So the next time you wake up, grab your phone and see those terrifying headlines about massive corporate layoffs and you feel that familiar dread creeping in, maybe it's time to stop worrying about the game entirely.
Right.
Look at your career not as a fragile series of jobs that you have to fiercely protect with cunning and strategy, but as an endless, open-ended opportunity.
An opportunity to relentlessly create.
To selflessly contribute.
And to be radically, uncompromisingly honest.
You might just find that instead of being the one left standing, you become the one person the world simply cannot afford to lose.